Welcome to Side Notes. I'm at the Toronto Web Fest 2014. Please enjoy the interviews. Thank you so much. I'm here with Rochelle, who's involved with the web series of Producing Juliet. She was also involved with the panel recently talking about courting branding. Thank you so much for your time there, Rochelle.
Pleasure.
And can you talk briefly about the synopsis of your web series that you're involved with right now in New York, and also the past one that you were also talking to me about?
Yes. So the first show that I did was called BJ Fletcher Private Eye, and that was made by Regan Latimer, who is she produced TO Webfest as well. So yeah, we made that in 2008. That was our first season, when really there weren't very many web series, and web series weren't really a thing. And it's since obviously exploded. Hence, we have these web fests crop up all over the world now, which I think is amazing. But that ran for 3 seasons on a website called afterellen.com, which is part of the logo network for MTV. And yeah, I mean, we had a really good time on that show, and are looking to do. Regan and I are going to be doing a new show called Witch Like Me. We're in kind of pre-production with that, so pretty early with that. But the other show that I'm here at WebFest with is called Producing Juliet, and that was written and directed by Tina Cesa Ward, who also made another show called Anyone But Me, which was much awarded, critically acclaimed. And yeah, so this is the other part, the synopsis of the show. So Producing Juliet centers the main character's called Rebecca, and she decides that she's in a point of her life where she just desperately wants change, and she meets a playwright called Juliet, who brings her into the world of the theatre, which is the kind of backdrop and almost another character in and of itself to our show. And she decides that she wants to produce Juliet's sophomore effort play, despite the fact that she has, absolutely no experience of producing at all, which, as a producer myself, I think is a bit of a silly decision. And it's a show that just revolves around the characters in that particular world, and how they basically bring their off-stage drama to the stage, and vice versa. So it's a love story.
And you were talking about the importance of branding in regards to you funding these web series. How have you actually been involved with helping branding to help fund your own projects?
It's interesting. I think one of the things that has changed for me, because it doesn't honestly get any easier. You just wise up a little bit more as to the things that are going around. So I should probably say I have a branding consultancy. It's based in the UK, and I also work for a pretty big agency which takes care of integrating brands into shows and having them grow new audiences or reach new audiences. That's in from the brand's perspective. So though on the other side of it, yes, I also kind of make my own shows. The great thing about having a job, which is, kind of on the flip side of that, is that, the mechanisms, the paperwork, all the things that brands expect to see, definitely at a pitch stage, I can anticipate these things better. And I know what these materials are, and I can kind of make and produce them and so forth. It's not an easy in. Everyone assumes just because that's my job that I can automatically fund my own shows. I still pitch the same way that everyone else does, just with a little more hindsight and a little more kind of knowledge as to what goes into these decision-making processes.
And what are some of the finer points to follow when you're pitching for a brand? What are some of the finer points that people doing the project should focus on in order to be successful, vice not being successful?
I think they really need to know who their audience is. I mean, it's a really key fundamental, but I think when people look to pitch to brands or try and secure them, they always think of it of this process that's incredibly siloed from their own production making. And really, it's really knowing the person who watches your show. Whether that's a mother who watches the show in in her off time, before she picks her kids up from school, or whether it's a college kid, who watches your show, on the go and shares it with his friends, and so on and so forth. You have to really know who you're making your show for. Like, you can't just make your show. You have to really know who your audience is. And the minute you know that, you know what they buy, what they eat, where they hang out, what clothes they wear, which brands they'd be attracted to in all of those realms. And you can align your show, the values of your show, the messages of your show, to the target audience of your show, to brands that are also chasing that particular audience. And if you can align those things, as much as possible, you're more likely to be more successful, both from a kind of the brand's perspective and from the show's perspective, in terms of adding real value to the audience from both fronts.
So what you're saying is a lot of research, and make sure that you have a really kicking business plan at the same time when you're approaching these people.
It's just being very, very clear. I think people can get they can tie themselves up to knots over, oh my goodness, I've got to meet with the marketing director of this one brand, if you even get to that stage. But really, it's just being basically very clear about why you're making your show and who you're making it for, and the rest pretty much, the rest is just process that just falls into place, basically.
And quickly, can you give us your website, just in case someone wants a question they want to ask you?
Yes, you can. So my company's called Bats In Belfries. It's this one. And you can go to batsinbelfries.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Rochelle Dancel.
And looking back, right from the start of your career to now, what are some of the pitfalls that you'd like to see the young people avoid?
I think definitely, when you start coming to web series, you should go to web series events and try and build your community as much as possible. I think the one thing that I've learned personally is not to be so precious about things, and I think that it's always better to own sort of 60% of something than 100% of nothing. I think that I probably would have been a little bit freer with my show, and a lot less kind of, no, we have to do everything ourselves. I think it's that old adage, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, you need to go with people. So, building your team is probably, another kind of big lesson that I've learned. Building these kind of collaborative relationships so that the final output is greater than the sum of its parts.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and have a beautiful web series.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.